It's Wednesday. It's Writing Wednesday, and I thought I would talk today about envy, a human emotion, and something that when you're trying to do something difficult and you're doing something in a field where there are many people that you admire, there is an element of envy. There is an element of competitiveness. There is an element of what, you know, what we deserve, what we don't deserve, what others deserve and don't deserve, where you are in your writing life. It'll show up in different forms, but envy is part of life. And when you're doing something in a competitive field, you do experience envy. And it starts when you start. There are always these little dark corners of the psyche that struggle with your relationship to other people and to your craft and to other people's success. This is applicable in many areas of life, certainly, but I don't envy. If I envy somebody's picnic making skills, it doesn't hit me as deeply as envying somebody's publication success. And why certain people and not others is kind of a mystery. It usually hits us by surprise. We think we're very cool and evolved people, and we're going to be very supportive of others. And then it just smacks us in the head. Somebody's gets something, has something, is covered in a certain way, their publication, has a certain kind of success that just floors us. And a lot of times it depends on where we're at psychologically, when we're feeling vulnerable, when we're working on something that's not coming all that well, and someone else often is doing something similar to what we do or like to do or want to do or where we want to be, and we're struggling, and then there they are in the limelight doing exactly what it is that we want to do. If only we had had the determination, if only we had had the focus, if only we were cooler than we are, why can't I be cool like so-and-so? I mean, this is something that starts in elementary school. And they're primitive emotions, and they're hard to get a grip on. And writing brings them up like crazy. I can tell you that when I was writing, starting to take workshop, I was, several years into my process and getting absolutely nowhere. I mean, my writing was getting better, but my, publication, my so-and-so career was getting nowhere. And I remember I would go to the I would go to the book festival when it was still at UCLA, the LA Festival of Books, and I would be so envious of the published writers that I couldn't even go into the panels to watch. I would sit on the lawn, often with groups of other writers that I knew who were in the same place, people in my writer's workshop, and we would sit on the lawn just hating everyone who had their book published. It was because we were all struggling and nobody was published, and it was just too painful to see people who were where we wanted to be. Whereas when we were further back, when we were less far along, you wanted to see them. You were like, oh my God, we have to go see so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and so. I want to be just like her. I want to be just like him. And we'd go and just idolize them. But it gets to a certain point in your career that you do not want to see those people because you're getting closer. And then it starts being, I hate this person. Look at them all fawning over this person. I'm maybe not just as good as them, but I'm getting there. And yeah, I just couldn't stand it. I mean, one of the things that fueled me, however, as a young writer was that I'm incredibly competitive, and I always have been, to the point of not wanting to do things that I wasn't going to be able to succeed at. I remember I mean, many of you know that I took poets and writers when I was a young writer. I didn't know any writers. I was a typesetter up in Portland, Oregon. And I would like blacken the smiling faces of those successful writers, the smiling, and I'd like black out a tooth and put horns on them, it's like, fuck you. And that kind of competitiveness is an energy. And I think that emerging writers, young writers who have a bit of that, a few scoops of that, of, screw you, I'll show you, the competitiveness fuels your writing. It gives you that heat, that bit of energy. I think people who aren't competitive find their engine somewhere else. They want to express something. They want to give voice to something silent in the world. But if you're breathing, you're going to have these moments where somebody else in the workshop is getting all the love. Oh, the teacher just thinks they are the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it's like, well, how about me? What about my story? Why do you hate me? I hate you. I hate your teacher's pet, But I had an experience where I had someone in my workshop, who he just was driving me crazy. And it seemed like everything this person wanted, he got. He just, held up his hands and said to the universe, I want this. And boom, down it would come into his arms. And he drove me crazy. I talked to my wonderful shrink about him. And she said, instead of hating him so much, why don't you take a page from his book? Why don't you ask for what you want? Why don't you step up and say what it is you want with the expectation that you were going to get it? And that was really startling to me. That's in Painted Black, that Josie can't believe Michael asks for what he wants and gets it. What a shock. I'm somebody who, if I ask for what I want and I get any kind of no, it really hits me hard. I as a young writer, I certainly battered my head against the literary establishment for a long time. And the rejections just, I was going to show them, I was going to make them, I was going to cram that down their throat. If they didn't like it, too bad. But envy, we're talking about envy, and how do you deal with this? In workshop, we've talked about this. It's going to be competitive. And that kind of puts a little starch in your spine. You don't want to come to workshop looking like an asshole because you want to garner respect from others. So in that sense, it puts you on the warpath. That's not a bad thing. It's not a comfortable thing, but it's not a bad thing. But energy, envy will dog you throughout your life. There's no way of being a human being without having to deal with this every so often. It will come up. The more it comes up, the more it should tell you. It should tell you something. If you find that you're a very envious person, or you are going through a phase where you are very envious, and everybody, it's like it sticks in your throat. Having to congratulate this friend and that friend. It's, I read the piece about you in the New Yorker, blah, 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 Oh, it's so wonderful. And then inside you're just like, and it's not their fault. They're having a run of good luck, good fortune. but you still just like, yeah, how nice for you. And it's important to try to have a little bit of a laugh. Here it is again. Oh, how lucky for you. Um, it's publication season right now. We've got the news of who's gotten their Guggenheims, and I love these people. These are writers that I really like. But you get that, oh, how nice, it's like, you try not to go to that place with how nice for you, but Jesus, and you do say how nice for you. You do, this is one you keep to yourself. You keep it to yourself, or tell it to your shrink, or tell it to your very closest friends. But this is the little tiny wounded person inside of you. This is not something you want to wave on a flag to your writing colleagues. God, because it'll never be understood quite right, and people will always look at you and think of you as somebody who is secretly not happy for them. Don't spread it around. Keep a lid on it in the outer world, and then bitch about it to your family or your closest friends. Give it to a character, But just because I'm saying keep a lid on it in public doesn't mean that I'm telling you to deny it. It's going to be there. Now, who is it that you normally envy? Well, you envy people who are doing what you would like to be doing, but for some reason have not been able to do. You envy the people who had the nerve to apply for that frickin' Guggenheim again and again and get the rejection and get another one. I have a friend who's just got a Guggenheim this year, and he has applied for it like 6 times. Now, I'm the kind of person, I get the first rejection on a Guggenheim, and I don't know if unless I had heard that, oh yeah, he has applied for it 6 times. It's like, wow. Okay, suck it up, and I'm easily offended. When I get waitlisted for something, I'm like, screw you, I'm just going to take a pass on that. I don't need your fellowship, whatever. And I got to get over that. Writers can't be sensitive. It's better to have that warrior approach, like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to apply until I get it. You tend to be envious of the people who are closest to you. They're doing what you would like to be doing. They're doing what you do or what you did. It's like, you don't envy somebody who's crappy. You envy someone who is fantastic and that you could see yourself doing that. So you always listen when you're envious, listen to yourself and see if I put in twice as much energy on my work as I'm doing, I could be her. And some of it is letting go of being the cool kids. You read an article about some wildly romantic figure who's doing incredible things and, solo hiking across the Himalayas. I'm not going to solo hike across the Himalayas. I don't care how cool it is. I'm a writer. I sit at home. I work. I hang out with my friends from time to time when I have the time. I like to do art. I like to read poetry. I'm really not the solo hiker across the Himalayas kind of a person. But when you read about these people, these neo-Hemingways or whatever, being human being, we see kind of something that is portrayed as a legend. This is making of legends. And you see that kind of stuff. There are always writers who are being turned into legends. They're the wonder boys and girls. And we see them, often they're they can be incredibly young, much younger than we are. You know, that when we were that age, like we could hardly figure out how to, you know, deal with the food stamps. And you know, is to divorce the writing from the image or the legend. Yes, they are being made much of at the moment, and they're very legendary, and they're the cool kids, and they're going to the parties that you're not invited to. But you have to divorce that from writing. That is the junior high self that just wants to be with the cool kids. Often a helpful thing is you can always ask yourself, is that a happy person? But that's a little sour grapesy, you know. It's wrestling with this in yourself. What's very helpful is remembering that only you can pull water out of your own well. You know, as much as you wish that you had written their book, as much as you wish you were one of the cool kids driving a DeLorean, you know, hanging out with David Lynch or whatever the legend is happening. What matters is what you are able to pull out of your own soul and your own experience and your own obsessions and fascinations and put on a page for a single reader. So all this legendy stuff, it doesn't matter to the writer. What matters is if you're seeing something in their work or in their spirit that draws you, that's making you uncomfortable, that you're envying. It can point the way. It can say, gee, you know, maybe I want to do something more risk-taking. Maybe I want to, but that's about life, you know, maybe I want to live in a more risk-taking or original way. Maybe I am too satisfied with, or not satisfied, but kind of lazy, scared, introverted, whatever. And maybe I want to reach out a little bit more. I seem to be responding to this, but separate that from the work. You know, we envy people who are producing good work, not crappy work. Who wants to be some crappy writer who's selling a lot of books? You just hate them flat out, you know, because they're a you know, a stain on the act of being an artist. But you envy people who are doing great work that nevertheless is somewhat similar to where you're going or what you're doing. And also you have a reaction to people who publish things that you know, it's the attention they're getting that's bothering you, not so much that they've created something intensely beautiful. But often they have created something intensely beautiful. But it's like the attention people get for their work. Maybe they are glamorous type of person. You know, they tend to cultivate people who are also glamorous. They get to go to the parties. They look right. They dress right. They have the right spouse who, you know, either, you know, fits well or takes care of the kids. So, you know, they can just go and be glamorous. And they write about glamorous things, maybe. And that is aside from the work. So it's separating the envy for the life and the envy for the work. Among very young people, the glamorous life of the writer is sometimes what attracts them to writing in the first place. People like Anais Nin, Colette, Joan Didion, you know, I mean, the glamorous people suggest to a very young writer that, wow, you know, if I become a writer, I can sleep with Henry Miller and I can wear those cool clothes and, you know, hang out with Salvador Dali or whoever. And that's the attraction maybe initially to writing, but then you have to sit down. Then you learn, oh my God, I've actually got to sit down and do something meaningful. And as you go along, you realize that it's much more meaningful to create that good work. And when you feel these slings and arrows, it's like, oh my God, and they've just, this glowing New Yorker article about a colleague, writing friend, and in your pleasure for them, because, wow, they got a new book coming out, and I love their work. There's that twinge of, oh man, I haven't climbed the Himalayas, or I didn't spend 4 years in, working with child soldiers in Africa. And that's where you have to take water from your own well. You have to be yourself, and you really have, and there's a certain kind of grief attached to letting go of what you aren't, to know that, yes, I am not going to party with Andy Warhol, and it's just not going to happen. It's never going to happen. If I had been alive then and I had been in that place, I would not have been there. And accept that about yourself, and there's a grief that happens about growing up and realizing who you are and who you are not. But once you have that grief, then you can let go of a lot of that envy and say, yes, really lucky for her or him that he is such an interesting romantic character. Maybe I'll write a character like that. But that will never be me. That's not me, and let that go. So then you can let go of the longing for glamour and the longing for that. But it certainly makes writing more appealing than just, I sit at home and work in my pajamas. And no, I don't meet anybody glamorous. I don't know anybody glamorous. And I just think about stuff. And I think about the human condition. And no, I don't go skydiving. And I'm never going to go skydiving. And when I was younger, I forced myself to do stuff. I thought I should create a life because I, became a writer because of this glamour factor. And I really thought I should do all these things. And I should, drive fast cars and ski and, scuba dive and surf and do all this stuff and have romantic allegiance, romantic alliances with unsavory men and live in a more dangerous way. And I discovered that it's very difficult for me to be art and make art. At some point I had to decide, do I want to be art? Do I want to, do all these drugs and meet all these men and do all these crazy things and kind of surf that wave? Or do I want to sit down, have a very quiet, stable thing and do my work? And I went for the second, but not everybody does. I mean, a lot of people do get energy, not a lot. But there are people who get a lot of energy for their work, doing these having this glamorous life, feeds their work, or is just who they are. They have a tremendous amount of energy, they have a natural affinity to the things that are cool, that other people would think are cool, and people are interested in them as people. But know that this is life. There's always going to be the cool kids. And figuring out whether you want to go for that or not helps you with this question of envy. How about a romantic, glamorous character who's miserable inside? Oh, yeah. Well, people don't become artists necessarily to become happy. It's not therapy. It is kind of on a different axis, that some people, the force of the energy of their life, their life force, is about achievement and not about personal contentment or happiness. And so a person like that does get a lot of work done and does some very interesting things in life and affects other people. Somebody thinks every glamorous person is miserable inside. Well, that's sort of, that's sort of sour grapesian, Oh, they're so glamorous they must be miserable. Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. You can be completely obscure and miserable as hell. So, I think it's a different axis. But for work, am I doing good work? When I'm not doing good work, when I'm being lazy, when I'm when I just can't reach what I'm working so hard to get, and I'm not getting there, and I'm not getting there, and then I see somebody getting all the goodies. Somebody's getting confetti rose petals strewn in their path. Then the envy comes up, and I think that we all struggle with it. And the important thing is to kind of pull it apart and say, okay, now what part of this is, deserving this hostile reaction? Is it that this is somebody who has not been good to me, and seeing them getting all the goodies really pisses me off? Is this somebody who is working hard? Do I like their work? Usually, absolutely, I like their work. And what is it in me that's feeling that lack? That maybe, do I feel like I'm failing? Am I feeling like I'm not getting enough attention? And then you're back in your personal life and figuring out how to feel kind of in the center of your life. I took this wonderful course. I had a big birthday, and I decided I was going to go and take one of these kind of human development courses, which I just adored, up at Esalen, which I'll be teaching up at Esalen this summer. If you want to do something with me and Pico Iyer, we're going to do the Traveler's Journal together. It's going to be awesome. But it's one of the things I learned was that healthy people go for what they want. They reach out for pleasure. They reach out to the things that interest them, to the things that sparkle for them. And neurotic people, they react from fear. They armor up. They're protecting themselves. And if you can think about reaching out for the things that you want, that give you pleasure, then all this envy stuff seems to fall to the wayside if you're actually coming from your own center and reaching for the things that you really want. If you, for some reason, have failed to reach out for the things you want, if you have failed to respond to the artistic self, you're much more prey to envy. If you feel like you have given up on something, if you've produced work that is not your best, you're going to be much more prey to this kind of thing. There seems to be a certain amount of luck, Linda says, that goes into it. That more than a few who are celebrated now but work in obscurity when they were alive. Oh yeah. Also the dead people. Usually you don't envy the dead people who weren't celebrated until they were dead. It's more people in your sphere. So the further along you get, the more writers you know. And then when they have big success, a lot will depend on your feelings about them. Do you feel like they always get what they want? Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. I'm working on my ass. But some of it's luck. Some of it's subject matter. There's certain subject matter that people gravitate towards more than others. But so you keep going back. You got to pull water out of your own well. If somebody else happens to have subject matter that's attracting people, you can't engineer that. You can't say, I'm going to change my soul so it's more like what the market wants. You don't know. And the work itself will not be as good if it's not coming from your directly from who you are. But competitiveness is very interesting. It's a habit of comparing oneself to others and having to be the best, or competing as damn well as you can. As somebody who was the worst 120-yard dash in a class of, the 100-yard dash in a class of, say, gym class of, say, 80, 100 people. I was the worst. I mean, the disabled people were better than me because I think too much. I can't get off the mark. I'm not a short story writer. It takes me a while to realize, it's time to go. I got to think that through. So I was much better at the mile than I was at the 50-yard dash. But it depressed me. I hated the people who were always just streaking ahead, unless they were friends, in which case it's like, yeah, one for our team. And the idea is to try to think of how this can be one for our team. Is very helpful with envy. A friend who's getting the full glamour treatment in the really nice magazines. How can that be one for our team? Maybe it's somebody from your town, like an LA author for me, is always one for my team. If it's a woman and they're getting the kind of treatment that the guys usually get, the Wonder Boys, but it's a woman getting that treatment, it's like it's one for the team. So the more you can figure out how their success is actually something that you can celebrate, that's much better. And it takes a while. Sometimes it'll take a while to wrap your head around that. Also, you'll find that the more of a good literary citizen you are, which is helping other people, supporting other people, when you get older, writing their blurbs, or just being, somehow giving back, teaching, whatever it is, helps you release the envy to some degree, because you realize how everybody is struggling and you're doing your part to bridge it for someone else. And it really takes the edge off for ourselves. For every envious writer, there's at least one person who finds the writer's work intriguing. Well, isn't that nice? That's true. And writing is a one-to-one conversation. So if, somebody's getting a big love, big hug, a big wet kiss from the universe, that's great, but it's what one person speaks to another person on the page. That's the important thing. So when you see a big public reaction, cut that down and just think, that book is going to reach a lot of readers, and that's including yourself. That's going to be wonderful. Let's see, what else can I say? Healthy people reach out for what they want, and neurotics react from fear. The fear is where it's at, fear of humiliation. You feel humiliated. There's so-and-so with their, public acclaim, and there's you still pounding away at that same chapter that's just not coming together. And, you have to watch for stepping in self-pity, like it's dog shit, frankly. You're going to step on it, you're going to track it all over the carpet. You try to stay clear of that. Why you? Why not you? You're at a different stage in your process. You're not finished. I mean, there have been times where the book festival is always a litmus test of how well things are going for me. There are years when I was working on Marina M, and it was such a struggle that I didn't go to the book festival. I just couldn't bear to see all those people who'd finished their books. And allow for that. Allow for that. That's going to be part of your life. Give yourself some space for that. And the deepest thing is that sense of grief for all the people that you're not going to be and all the things you're not going to do. That, to have a genuine moment to mourn the alternate selves that you're not, which is why you became a writer, so that you can live those alternate selves in your work if you want. But it's, that's where it deepens. That's where you get to something that that's very close to the soul. Is understanding who you are, who you're not, and allowing people to be them and get what they're getting, and realize it has nothing to do with you. The Stoics would say that which you have no control over should be a matter of indifference, which means you pay attention to what you are doing. If you feel deep in your heart that you have not been working hard enough, that you have not been involved enough in your work, if you're not excited enough about your work, your life, the world, if you're can't find your curiosity or your fire, or you feel like everybody's piling on responsibilities on you, and there is somebody who seems to be skating, free of all that, you read that, tell yourself that, and take a look at what you're telling yourself. So, what if you don't care about acclaim, just getting your words out in the world? I think that that's all you can do, even if you want all that acclaim, even if it's, you do care, you can't control it. So you might as well just forget about it and concentrate on the work itself, and then who does connect. Like I do get letters from readers saying, God, the Marina M., I just really got into it, and it was super, and got me through some time that was really awful, and I was able to lose myself in your book. And it's like, that's feeds the writer. I mean, that's genuine, that you have contacted a single human being. That's what reading is, that's what writing is all about. And the big noise, the big wet kiss, there's not a lot you can do about that. But if you're not working as hard as you can, as hard as you are able, if you're not connecting to life in a way that feels joyous and energized, and then other people start getting the goodies, then you're really leaving yourself open to this. So that is Writing Wednesday. Any more questions? Let's see if I missed anything. Yeah, all you writers, you really, everybody seems to be suffering for this. Glamour can be worn like a mask, and it doesn't cover everything. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of glamour that, there's not a lot of glamour in the world, and I think that, maybe stepping up on the style end is energizing in some way. So anyway, thank you very much, and I'll be back next week for another Writing Wednesday. Bye.